Uzbekistan has quietly built one of the most dominating boxing systems in the world, producing a new wave of elite fighters who blend the old Soviet fundamentals with explosive athleticism and unorthodox movements. Among the very best of them is Israil Madrimov, a fighter whose unorthodox style through use of angles, unpredictable combinations, and an unusual rhythmic pressure that makes him one of the most interesting fighters in the sport to watch. But Madrimov's style isn't just natural talent, it's a product of hard work and an intense, highly specialised training system that has shaped some of the best amateur and professional boxers in the world. In this episode of How Champions Train, I'm going to break down the history and approach to Uzbek boxing while looking at how Madrmov has refined his unique skill set to the pros by the training methods that have made some of his moves so signature. So on that note, let's get right into it. First up, it's important to discuss how this Central Asian country has established itself as one of the rising powers in boxing in recent times, and what makes it unique to the other former Soviet bloc schools. Believe it or not, the main part of their boxing heritage comes from an American, Sidney Jackson, who originally found himself stuck there due to war. Back in 1914, Jackson was a young boxer on the US national team. At the time, he was travelling Europe on a boxing tour. However, due to injury, he couldn't participate, and he decided with a friend to visit Russia. But what started out as a simple trip quickly turned into something far more significant that would change his life forever. While checking into the hotel, they opened the newspaper to shocking news. World War I had just begun. With borders closing and travel restricted, they were stranded. Looking for safety, they were advised to head to Tashkent, the capital of Uzbekistan, as a way to get back to the US. His friend eventually received money to return home, but Jackson wasn't as fortunate. With no way back, he had to find work, eventually taking job as a tailor. But as a competitive boxer and a fighter, he wasn't exactly built for stitching buttons. He needed something more. Eventually, he ended up joining the Russian Civil War at one point. But it was after this though, Jackson found an opportunity that he truly loved: boxing, in particular, coaching. He became a sports instructor in Tashkent, eventually setting up the first ever boxing club in the region. Resources were scarce, so he built everything himself, sewing gloves from leather and horsehair, turning old canvas bags into punching bags, and even constructing a makeshift ring from ship rope. But Jackson wasn't just teaching boxing, he was building a mindset, discipline, toughness, and a love for competition, not to mention his knowledge of the sport itself that was absent before the Soviet Union started to push the sport. Some of his most famous pupils include the Soviet Union's best ever middleweight, Valery Popchenko, who would go on to win gold at the 1964 Olympics, while Jackson also coached very successful Uzbek boxer in Rufat Rizkiev, who missed out on gold to Leon Spinks in the 1976 Montreal Olympics. But each fighter that found success were known as Jacksonites, who would carry his teachings forward to the next generation, and it was this that set the foundation that would become the Uzbek Boxing School that is still recognised to this day. Fast forward to modern times, and Uzbek boxing is stronger than ever. At the 26 Olympics, they took the world by surprise, winning a record-breaking 7 medals at the time. That's more than the amateur powerhouse nations of Cuba and Russia. But maybe it was the Paris Olympics, where they won 5 gold medals out of the 7 men's categories, which is truly extraordinary. In terms of the style of school thought, there's no denying that Uzbeks have a very unique boxing style compared to other Central Asian countries. Uzbek boxing emphasises sharp, efficient strikes over volume, combined with discipline, defense, and elite conditioning to outlast opponents, which has no doubt been a huge influence by the old Soviet school of thought. However, their unique flair comes also with a blend of balanced stability, explosiveness, and agile footwork that allows them to seamlessly transition between attack and defense through the use of creating angles, while at the same time being disciplined with their guard and defense, not only to protect themselves but to draw out counterattacks, making them tough fighters to work out. But the two things that really stand out for me is their adaptability and their toughness. And there's no doubt deep influences and traditions that Jackson embedded in that Uzbek boxing system that is still felt to this day. But of course, maybe one of the most perfect fighters to put all this together is Israil Madrimov, and his school instilling that dedication to training, athleticism, and boxing ring IQ makes him the perfect example to cover. Now, researching Madrmov's exact training routine has been a bit of a challenge. There wasn't that much detailed breakdown available online, and most of what I found came from scattered bits of information across English, Uzbek and Russian sources. However, since he trains under Joel Diaz, the same coach who has worked with Dmitry Bivol for his fight against Canelo, and even worked with former champ Tim Bradley, I put together examples of what a typical day might look like based on the Diaz brothers' training methods and what we know about Madrimov's style. One important thing to note is that the training is always evolving in the lead up to a fight. The intensity, the duration, and the type of training will change depending on the stage of the camp, obviously, with harder days focused on conditioning or just sparring, for example, while lighter days dedicated to technical refinement, recovery, and strength and conditioning. Harder days from Monday, Wednesday, Friday might include high intensity circuits, hill runs, and harder strength and conditioning drills, while sparring will also be involved in these days, increasing the rounds as they get closer to the fight so Madrimov can reach his peak, while this will also include high intensity bag work and pad work as well. Lighter days will include things like footwork, shadow boxing, while also focusing on things like recovery. From what I've seen, he might do up to 2 training sessions a day. In the morning, he'll do his boxing session, whether that be sparring, more technical drills, stuff like that. Then after some lunch and rest, he might have a strength and conditioning session. Not to mention, Madrimov will also go out and runs in the morning as well. But as I said, this is just an interpretation of the information I've found, especially as Joe Diaz will change the intensity throughout the camp or give days off to fighters so they can fully recover and come back stronger. But one thing is for sure, the guy's always training. Let's start off with his cardio. And just like all fighters, he does his road work. And he'll tend to typically run anywhere from 3 to 6 kilometers for long endurance runs. While not often mentioned, he sometimes challenges himself by wearing a 10 kg weighted vest, adding an extra layer of physical difficulty. This not only can help improve his strength and endurance, while also helping burn more calories and his balance while he's running. Doing other How Champions Train videos, the only other fighter I've noticed doing these weighted runs is Gennady Golovkin, one of his idols, who would use lighter dumbbells while training up in Big Bear. It's possible that Madrimov utilizes these methods outside of camp so he can maintain his conditioning and stay one step ahead. While Israil also does elevated runs, both in his home country of Uzbekistan and his boxing gym base in California in Indio. Indio is known for elevated trails and the extreme heat, adding another greater physical and mental challenge to his training, but nothing he's not used to due to the climate in Uzbekistan. Doing these elevated runs also have several benefits, including increasing the leg strength and power, helping to burn more calories again, overall just providing greater resistance when he's out in his runs. I doubt he does this throughout his whole camp, but at the same time I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Next up we have the jump rope. As you can imagine, this is the staple of Madrimov's training, usually performed as a warm-up before his boxing sessions, or as a warm-down. And obviously this helps with things like footwork coordination, cardio endurance, his rhythm and timing. As you would expect, he's very good at doing so. Now let's get onto his boxing training. Madrimov typically starts his boxing workouts with shadow boxing, focusing on his punch combinations and technique, footwork and head movement, and defensive drills and angling out. Sometimes you even see him slow down the punches to perfect the technique, demonstrating his attention to detail, while occasionally he also integrates a slip bag into his shadow boxing routine, working on defensive movements like ducking and dodging and pivoting out, just as we've seen him do in the ring. Also seen him use the traditional slip line with his shadow boxing to work on sinking with his whole body, while helping him also work on ducking, dodging and weaving. Maybe though the most unique thing I've seen him work on is shadow boxing on a big tractor tire. Obviously it has quite a bounce, so it requires Madrimov to keep his stance while he changes his foot position, not to mention his balance. But watching him shadow box overall, it's clear that he has some erratic rhythm, which makes him very unpredictable by the time he gets in the ring. And it's clear he fine-tunes these techniques in his shadow boxing before sparring or fight night. Next up, we have the heavy bag. Much like his shadow boxing, Madrimov maintains that constant rhythm, mixing his combinations, feints, and his footwork. But what I like is that he's treating the heavy bag as if it's an actual opponent, staying in motion at all times. Something that seems to be a recurring theme amongst some of the best champions we've seen. In terms of more reaction bags, Madrimov also incorporates different tools to improve his reflexes and coordination. One being the speed bag, primarily for his shoulder endurance, but he also bounces on his feet while using it, very similar to the way Manny Pacquiao would do it, working on both his upper and lower body. While we've also seen him use the double end bag, where he not only works on his timing with his punches landing on the bag, he also uses head movement and defensive reflexes, keeping his head off the center line while punching, while sometimes he'll use continuous footwork and angles while using it. There's also clips of him using a swinging aqua bag, similar to the slip bag I showed before. And much like you saw with his shadow boxing, he'll be using the same movements, but actually hitting the bag after ducking and weaving as he moves. In terms of mitt work, there's also interesting footage, as we've seen Madrmov train on the pads with both the Diaz brothers and his former amateur Uzbek coach. Each coach brings something different though. Joel Diaz, for example, emphasises on power generation at times, clearly trying to help Madrmov adjust to the pro style by trying to get him plant his feet more. While the Uzbek coach focuses more on precision and movement, drilling 1 or 2 shots before trying to get him to pivot out in an angle, more in line with the natural amateur instincts I guess. Both approaches complement his style though, giving him the best technical finesse and pro level power. There is more work with Diaz we've seen. He uses things like body shields to help Madrmov work on his body punching obviously, noodle sticks for precision, head movement and defensive drills. While there's traditional focus mitts, Joel and his brother will use these typical smaller focus mitt pads to obviously work on quick combinations and defense. While maybe the most unique method is how Diaz uses the broomstick with the glove, helping him to work on slipping punches as he comes into range, and just general defense. Next up, we have sparring. Like all elite fighters, sparring is where Madrmov puts everything into practice. In Diaz camp, sparring rounds gradually increase as the fight night approaches as I discussed, and this helps prevent overtraining while ensuring he peaks at the right time. Madrmov benefits also from high-level sparring partners. This includes the Uzbek fighters from the lighter and even heavier divisions that train out of Diaz's gym, while there's also Mexican-style pressure fighters due to the location in California. And he famously worked with Dmitry Bivol as he prepared for Canelo at Diaz's gym. Not to mention, he's also trained with 2-time Olympic gold medalist Bakodir Jalolov for some light sparring. This diverse sparring experience prepares him for any style, whether he's facing quick, slick boxers or a physical, imposing pressure fighter. Diaz's gym ensures Madrmov is ready for anything come fight night. Now, maybe for the most interesting part of Madrimov's training, his strength and conditioning. Like many of the Uzbek fighters we've seen, they incorporate some unconventional strength and conditioning methods compared to other champions I've covered so far. However, he also integrates plenty of traditional and modern exercises into his routine. One thing that stands out about Israil is his sheer athleticism. He's capable of almost anything. His strength and conditioning work directly enhances his boxing style in my opinion, improving that explosive power and overall strength, speed and agility when he's in there. In fact, I don't think I've seen a fighter incorporate such a wide variety of strength and conditioning exercises. Let's take a closer look at some of the unique training methods, as well as a few you might be able to implement yourself. First up, let's look at footwork exercises. Some of you may have seen the viral clips of Madrmov and other Uzbek boxers performing cross-step exercises using that grid ladder system. So what's the purpose of these drills? These exercises primarily improve athletic ability by developing foot speed, explosiveness, and coordination. They aren't necessarily meant to refine boxing footwork, but serve as a conditioning drill that enhances a fighter's movement when they step into the ring. The fact they make these drills look so effortless speaks volumes about the years of drilling involved. We've also seen other Eastern European fighters like Alexander Usyk, Artur Beterbiev, and Vasyl Lomachenko use similar drills, though perhaps not at the same intensity as the Uzbeks. Another more modern exercise Madrmov incorporates is reaction-like training, as his coach uses this method to not only improve reaction time while adding a plyometric element by having him bounce on one foot as he reacts to the light. Speaking about plyometrics, Madrmov also does a lot of these types of exercises to develop explosive strength and power. These exercises target the fast twitch muscle fibers through short, intense bursts of movement, often involving jump-based or bodyweight exercises. For the lower body, he incorporates spring-like jumping exercises, sometimes adding resistance to increase intensity or jumping over things. His coach also integrates medicine ball throws with footwork drills, combining the ballistic movements with coordination to simulate the punching motion he would actually throw in a fight. And it's actually quite unbelievable how many of these different exercises he does, but a lot of it stems from his footwork. And as you all know, a lot of the punching power stems from the way you're able to generate the power starting from your feet all the way from your core to the end of the punch, also helping that fast power come from nowhere. Madrmov also frequently engages in high-intensity circuit training, which is excellent for developing aerobic fitness, his strength and endurance, and the ability to maintain a high intensity under fatigue. This type of strength and conditioning really helps prepare him for that high work rate required when in the ring. Common exercises in this circuit include things like the ski machine, building endurance and forcing the full body engagement at that high intensity, while things like the assault bike or treadmill also improve the conditioning. Furthermore, we've also seen him use burpees before doing plyometric jumps, developing that explosiveness at the high intensity work rate that is obviously required at this level. And this maybe leads me on to one of the most impressive displays of athleticism, and that's his explosive pull-ups and push-ups. He doesn't just perform standard reps, he adds an explosive element. The one that kind of blows my mind is performing pull-ups with a slap at the top. It just shows you the upper body strength this guy truly has. And from his knockouts, it's clear this can transfer well over into the ring. Not just the upper body, he also does traditional leg exercises as well, but with some slight adjustments that you would be used to seeing in any gym. These include elevated heel squats, helping to increase his range of motion and depth. While he also does Anderson squats, which starts from a lower position for the squat range, allowing him to do heavier lifting to get greater strength gains and reduce the risk of injury. He's also done things like reverse lunges with dumbbells, helping with that glute activation, while bringing his leg back up for balance and overall stability. Another area of his body that he trains, like many great fighters before him, is his neck muscles, and using the weighted neck harness, this helps prepare him for absorbing punches in the ring. Champions like Floyd Mayweather and Andre Ward have also prioritized neck training, despite being defensive boxers, trying to improve their punch resistance if it happens. While another traditional training method he uses is the old school woodcutting method, but using a sledgehammer on a tire. And this is a high impact workout that strengthens the core, shoulders, arms and legs, and that chopping motion mimics the kinetic chain used when throwing powerful punches. It's no wonder we've seen so many of the old champions use this as well in their training. As you can see from all this, Madrmov incorporates an extensive variety of strength and conditioning exercises, all which contribute to his footwork, punching power, endurance, and overall strength inside the ring. His training not only keeps him in peak physical condition, but it also keeps his workouts engaging and dynamic throughout camp. That being said, while Madrmov does a lot of strength training, his boxing training remains his top priority though. If you're interested in seeing more of this training, I highly recommend checking out his own Instagram, as he frequently posts all different types of workouts. Additionally, I recommend checking out his strength and conditioning coach, Benjamin Hernandez, who does a fantastic job guiding him through some of these routines. If you want to learn more about the science behind the strength training for boxing, be sure to check out Boxing Science, who've done some great breakdowns on Madrimov's training. Next up, we have Madrimov's recovery and diet. Now, a big part of this is stretching. Madrimov does this both before and after training. With the amount of work this guy puts in so many areas of his training, this is absolutely key to make sure he doesn't get injured. Not to mention, he makes sure to have absolute rest after training, making sure he's completely recovered before his next session. In terms of his diet, I didn't find too much in this area in my research, other than when he's cutting weight, he manages his intake very closely. But from his whole approach to training, you have to think he takes this part seriously. However, I did see that his favourite food is Uzbek plov, the signature dish of Uzbekistan, which looking online almost looks like rice with lamb or chicken and vegetables in it. I actually think this would be a great post-workout meal. For any of you Uzbeks watching, let me know if this is a good nutritious meal or if there's anything else that Uzbeks have. Now, as you can probably tell, Madrimov is an unbelievably athletic man, and this was very obvious from a young age as he took part in multiple sports, not just boxing. He said, "Yes, I've tried many sports. I competed in regional tournaments in football, basketball, volleyball, table tennis, wrestling, acrobatics, and gymnastics. I also practiced karate seriously, but my passion for boxing was always the strongest. I highly respect Cristiano Ronaldo because I know how much work he put in to reach his level. Hard work is always rewarded in sports." As much as Israil's main focus is boxing now, he still to this day shows off doing things like backflips after his fights and even in training, while he also still participates in things like judo and jiu-jitsu. And obviously this may actually help to an extent when he's in the clinch or fighting on the inside, but one thing is for sure, even just the fact he played all those sports growing up, it just shows you how adaptable and coordinated he actually is, especially when you consider he can fight as an orthodox or a southpaw. Now, I think one of the most important parts of Israil is where he splits his time between Uzbekistan and Indio, California. The Diaz brothers' gym has everything you could ask for as a professional. The location also provides training conditions very similar to those in Uzbekistan, making the transition seamless. Not to mention, he trains alongside other Uzbek fighters, including MJ Akhmadaliev and many more, fostering a strong sense of community. This environment helps them settle in while maintaining a connection to their home country. Their collective work ethic, developed from their time on the Uzbek national team, carries into their pro journey now, creating a winning atmosphere as they all push each other to work harder to succeed. Joel Diaz acknowledged this, stating, "These fighters are different breed, humble, appreciative kids. And we have the chemistry because I believe we as Mexican Americans are hungry, humble people too. They've put in the sacrifice to leave their countries and their families to become world champions. They never complain, and this has become their home."
He's very disciplined. He's very disciplined. They leave their country. They're here to train. They just train and rest. Train and rest. That's the difference between the American fighters and the Uzbekistan fighters. These guys are here to train. I mean, they're not here to go to Disneyland. They're not here to go to SeaWorld. They're not here to have parties or whatever, They're here to train. Their job is just strictly boxing. That's the difference, and that is the big advantage that we have. Israil Madrimov is like this. Every fighter in their country has proven himself, okay? Israil is not an American fighter. I mean, his career didn't evolutionize in America. He's great in Uzbekistan, in his country. So his people know he's great because he's proven to them that he is here for a reason. And people are gonna know. There's a lot of fighters that come from other countries that nobody knows. For example, I can go back and say, where's Manny Pacquiao? When Manny Pacquiao was brought in as a replacement for a fight, nobody knew who Manny Pacquiao was. But they gave him the opportunity, and all of a sudden Manny Pacquiao became a superstar. And that's where everything starts. These fighters that nobody knows, they need that one opportunity to be known. That's how everything starts. Now, that's what we're looking forward to.
Overall, you have to applaud the Diaz brothers, and they deserve a lot of respect for taking in these fighters and moulding them into top-tier professionals. Despite the language barrier at times, they've managed to train and prepare them for elite competition. In many ways, Joel Diaz serves as a modern-day Sidney Jackson, guiding the next generation of Uzbek boxing stars, much like Jackson did when he found himself out in Tashkent. Finally, I also want to talk about Israil's mentality. He is someone who grew up in extreme poverty in Uzbekistan, saying, "When I was little, we had no gas, electricity, or running water. As the oldest child, I walked 6 miles to school and 6 miles back every day. In the wintertime, I remember it pretty clearly because I was crying from the cold. That was when I decided to do something with my life for my family. I was going to do whatever it takes to move everyone to the city. I didn't know what the way out was, but I was going to push towards whatever I did with my life to find the way out." That way out, of course, was boxing. And he drew inspirations from fighters like Roy Jones Jr., Manny Pacquiao, Emmanuel Augustus, but his biggest idol was Kazakhstan's Gennady Golovkin, someone from a neighbouring country who had reached the pinnacle of the sport with a background similar to his own. When people back home grow up, they look up to someone like Golovkin and aspire to be like him. In 20-30 years, I want to inspire people too, and show them that through hard work and perseverance, you can do anything. My goal is to be remembered as a great champion who fought the best and never shied away from a challenge. But more than anything, Israil understood the importance of hard work. Becoming a champion is first of all hard work. The more hardworking a person is, the closer he is to becoming champion. Talent can only have a temporary effect. If you do not develop it and do not work at 100%, you will not go far on abilities alone.
What impressed you the most about Israil?
What impresses me the most about Israil, that he always has a goal in mind. And when he tells you that thing, it always comes true because he's in full control. When he's in that ring, he's in great control. Strong fighter, very disciplined fighter, and that makes a big difference because Israil, when he's in the ring, he's very complicated. You can watch a video of Israil, and just because you're watching it, you can give yourself an opinion, but it's totally different when you're in the ring with him. When you're in the ring with Israil, it's very, very, very complicated.
Not to mention, he also sees boxing as a very mental sport, in the following. First of all, mental abilities. Boxing is even compared to chess. They say it's not just a sport, but an art. It's important to think and be able to make decisions quickly. If you do not use your brain in the ring, it will be very easy to defeat you. That's why boxing attracts smart athletes. And of course, everyone who has set a goal to become champion must have discipline. You need to sleep on time, eat on time, train on time. Without this, it is impossible to achieve high results. Another major aspect for Israil's success is his deep faith. Islam is a core part of his life, giving him focus, discipline and purpose. He certainly adheres strictly to his religious beliefs, which not only keeps him grounded, but also prevents him from falling into vices that could distract him from his goals. His faith plays a crucial role in his ability to maintain strong work ethic and remain fully committed to his training career. And I really do believe that's the case for any fighter. You need to find something to believe in, something to do it for, a greater purpose if you want to have success. Israil Madrimov's journey is a testament to the power of discipline, sacrifice, and unshakable belief in hard work. From his humble beginnings in Uzbekistan to his rigorous training camps in Indio, California, he has built himself into a relentless force in boxing. His training under Joel Diaz, who has become a modern-day Sidney Jackson per se, for leading this new wave of Uzbek talent in America, has refined his skills while keeping him surrounded by like-minded warriors. But beyond the physical preparation, what truly sets Madrmov apart is his mentality, his faith, and dedication to his craft, leaving no room for distractions or vices. No denying he's followed his idol's footsteps in the likes of Gennady Golovkin, who embodied this same commitment. He carves out his own path with an unbreakable will. In his own words, becoming a champion is first of all hard work. Talent alone won't carry a fighter to the top. Discipline, intelligence, and willingness to push past the limits are what separate the contenders from the champions. If Madrmov continues on this path, there's no doubt he'll leave a lasting legacy for the next generation, just as his heroes did for him. Hope you enjoyed this episode of How Champions Train. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Uzbek training methods and Israil Madrimov. If you want more like this, why not check out one of these past How Champions Train episodes. As always guys, this has been Jamie from Boxing Life, and I'll see you in the next one.